I think it's safe to say that Generation 8 was one of the most controversial generations before it came out, and I can understand a lot of the reasons why. From the reasons to why they were cutting the Pokemon, and the E3 trailer back in 2019 definitely didn't look the greatest. And when we got more information on the title when the months went on, I still had some hope that it actually might be a decent experience regardless of what happened at E3. And when we did get the game back in November of 2019, I did end up playing it, and here we are with this video. I'll go over, of course, what I ended up liking and disliking, so, that'll just be, the general stuff, because I did do a video a good year or two ago about some aspects I think could have been improved, so if you want to watch that, I'll link it in the description below. Another point I want to mention is that this video will just cover the base Sword and Shield, so if you want to hear anything about the DLC, I'll make another video on that, kind of like how I did on Torn of the Golden Country for Xenoblade 2, since I do feel that there was at least enough for me to talk about there. But getting to the actual video, one of the things I actually ended up liking was the wild area in a lot of aspects. I think it was nice seeing the different biomes since, more often than not they would have a decent variety of Pokemon, and the locations kind of did look cool for the most part. I also liked the varying weathering changes since again it helped give some visual variety to the areas along with making certain Pokemon show up, which was cool. The music in the games I also found amazing, and it definitely has to be one of my favorite OSTs in any Pokemon game, at least the main series one, and if it's not my favorite, it's definitely in my top 3. I really can't pick any songs as my number one favorite, since honestly, I think they're all really amazing, or at least really good for the most part. And some notable ones, at least for me, definitely have to be Soul Chester, the Champion theme, all the other battle themes if I'm being honest, and the Gala Mines along with Stonесide. I also really enjoyed the rivals for the most part because I thought they had really nice moments. And while they're not my favorite trio of rivals, I could say at least again they have some nice moments and interesting aspects to them. BD has his thing with Chairman Rose and Opal, then there was Hop and him feeling depressed that he can't manage to win as easily as Leon, and you because you do end up beating him and just doing a lot of cool stuff. And then there was Molly, which didn't really have a story, but I still found her nice, at least when she was there, and I liked her moments with her brother. And the replayability for the game is also really nice here, even without DLC. There was like 369 different Pokemon to pick from, and this is counting for exclusives. And again, it still might be lower than X and Y like Sun and Moon was, but there's still a good amount of Pokemon to pick from. And even if you want to add in the DLC, there's 184 extra ones, and again, this is counting for exclusives and legend. And while the natural deck situation means you're more limited to say post-game activities, this point is mostly towards playing through the story and just other stuff like that. And honestly, I really do think the generation had a lot of potential. It's clear to see that with the rivals and the rival area. I just wish this game had a bit more time, since I would have loved to see the ideas fleshed out a lot more, since having an open world Pokemon game would have been really cool, and hopefully Legends Arceus actually does bring up those hopes. But the video isn't on that, and now I think it's a good time to get into the dislikes part of the video. One of them has to be the wild area, and I know I mentioned I liked it, but hear me out. After playing for a while, it kind of just felt really empty and small, since there wasn't really much to explore in each sub area, and I felt they could just last like a few minutes or so just by walking around in them. And if you play the base game only, there's like 2 wild areas, which kind of sucks since you can pretty much explore all of it as soon as you get the bike upgrade, and even then there's not much you can see after that. You can almost see everything by the time you finish Kabu's gym, which I found underwhelming. I wasn't expecting a massive open world game here. I was just hoping there would be at least some hidden side areas and maybe some cool small locations with the limited place that we got. I also found the rivals to be also underwhelming or kind of annoying sometimes as well, which sucks because I thought they had a decent amount going for them. BD had his story cut short, and I felt that maybe he could have had another thing where he helped you take down Rose since he abandoned him after what he did in Stonесide. He also just had nothing to do after the 5th gym, as I mentioned, until you fight him after the league, and even with that, his payoff was just kind of underwhelming to me. While I thought him wanting to become a fairy type gym leader, and a great one at that, was nice, it still didn't really have to do much with Rose, and again, I just wish there was more with that. Then with Hop, again, at some points I just found him slightly annoying because he would repeat the same stuff over and over again. This would mostly mostly be in the battles, since he would be like, oh, did you know that you hit a super effective attack or whatever else? And again, that kind of just got annoying since you just had to mash through the text boxes. And in the older game, yeah, he kind of did stop you at points, which again was kind of annoying. It wasn't the worst thing for me, but you know, it kind of stopped happening after the 4th gym from what I remember, or at least happened a lot less. But again, I feel if they toned down his dialogue, it would have been a lot less annoying, at least to me. Then we have Marnie, and she felt she was just there. I felt she at least kind of grew because she mentioned she wants to become champion after seeing you fight Pios, but you know, after that, it was just not really much of her doing anything, which kind of sucked. She was just on the sidelines, as I mentioned. Next aspect I didn't really like as much as I thought I would was the raid battles, because it kind of got boring pretty quickly. It's pretty much just hit the raid Pokemon super effective attack until they die, but a lot slower. And it feels like you have a lot less depth here, since, you know, you can only bring in one Pokemon and just use items. And while you can ask your friends to bring in other Pokemon to do a strategy, again, you're only really limited to 4 Pokemon here. And unless you're doing the Crown Tundra DLC with the legendaries, you're gonna have to deal with the shield aspect, and that's gonna be really slow since at most they have 8 and at minimum they have 2. And also, I'm pretty sure the normal attacks only do 1 point of damage to that, and the Dynamax ones do 2. And if you're doing a max star raid, you're gonna waste a lot of time here. And the AI is really bad unless you bring decently strong Pokemon so you can carry. So, you know, for me at least, it was kind of just a thing to play with other players here. And you can also Dynamax, I know, but again, that only mildly helps because, you know, they still have the shields. Also, speaking of Dynamax, I really didn't enjoy it as much here, and it kind of feels like Z moves and Megas combined into one, and it just feels super OP. What I mean by this is that the Pokemon moves gets buffed up to a huge degree, and they also do get a massive HP boost, along with some Pokemon actually gain a unique form that gives them an extra effect on a certain type of attacking move. Like for example, Snorlax can regenerate a berry that it was using, so if you have that stuff set up, you can just abuse that. And from my experience, the story battles and the player battles can almost always one-shot with an attack. And yeah, I always said almost always because it's, again, a lot like Z moves in that aspect. And again, it just mostly just changes the flow of battle drastically. So unless like the other player Dynamaxes the turn after, then yeah, you're pretty much gonna win almost all the time. I also don't like the pacing of the story here, and to me, it's a lot like X and Y in that aspect. There's that, and I kind of didn't like why Rose did it because, you know, the whole Darkest Day thing wasn't even going to happen yet. It was going to happen like years in the future, so he could have just waited. But also with the formal point, I kind of just saw it as, you know, like the villain kind of got shown early on, and you don't really see much of them until the very end of the game. And again, Rose's whole thing was kind of interesting, but I wish it was into that earlier on and developed more. And on that, it just feels kind of pointless considering the fact that, again, it won't happen for years. Next, we move on to the route design, and I think it's definitely on the lower end for the series for me. They feel really short, and the explorability is far less here. Feels like for the most part, they're just straight lines, minus say Route 6 and 8, but even then, the side paths don't last long. And I feel this was probably just done because there was a wild area, but even that felt kind of empty, so again, both are just kind of lacking here. The post game here also isn't really all that good either. It's again similar to how X and Y and Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon handled it. There was a Battle Tower-esque place, catching Pokemon, making competitive teams, doing an hour or so story in the post game, and catching like one legendary in this case, and there's also raids, and that still gets boring after a while. Again, this is for the base game. The DLC does kind of help that, but for what we have originally, it just feels really lacking. The game I also felt was a step back in difficulty, at least from Gen 7 in some aspects. I felt at least with Gen 7, there was at least the totem Pokemon that were kind of hard. Around Gen 8, I really struggled with the later hot battles along with the final battle with Leon and the Rhyhorn fight in his gym battle and a little bit at the Fairy Gym, but not that much. I don't think the EXP is the main issue here, just the same issues Pokemon's always had, but I think it's partly because of the AI and the team comms and moveset choices. I felt like, say, if Nessa's Dreadnought had Ice Fang and say Opal's Togekiss had a Thunder Wave, some more parts could have been a little bit more difficult, and those two I picked because I thought they were good examples. Again, easy games aren't the issue, it's just that coming off from Gen 7, it just felt kind of lacking. And I really want to say, just again, I really hope these games could have been really good in the end. And after playing it, I could see what the devs were going for, but it felt like they didn't have enough time to develop them. And with every aspect I liked, it just felt like they had 2 steps back. And even with other aspects I didn't mention, like the natural decks, something like that didn't really affect my ability to enjoy the game. It just would have been nice if they had kept them all. And with the graphics, I found them underwhelming, but again, that also didn't really affect my enjoyment of the game. And then we also have the online, which is basically the same thing. Well, that I thought sucked. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, just, felt like it needed some more polish. And in the end, these games just felt underwhelming, as I mentioned. And it mostly just feels like X and Y to me in a lot of ways, where it was the first main series game on a new console and it just felt rushed. I don't 100% hate the games, but at the same time, they'll fall for my favorite main series titles. But I want to hear what you guys ended up liking and disliking about these games, and let me know in the comments below, and I would love to hear your thoughts. And of course, I will go over my own likes and dislikes before the video ends. Likes: the wild area in general, OST is fantastic, rivals have nice moments and nice replayability. Dislikes: wild area is kind of lacking in a lot of aspects, like, explorability and whatnot. Rivals were kind of lacking or either kind of annoying. Raid battles get boring fast. Dynamax is too overpowered. Story pacing, and it just, again, feels lacking in general. Lacking route design. Post game is just not the greatest, and the game is kind of easy. Thank you all for watching, and see you guys later. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter, which is in the description below.